What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another podcast. So this is actually the final episode of the Bitcoin Point podcast that I've been doing. So yeah, I'm actually very excited to get this one, on the way. And we're joined today by a very special guest, Tara Annison. So Tara, I'm going to allow you to let the viewers know who you are, what it is that you do, and yeah.
But first, it's time for a sponsored segment of this video brought to you by Bitcoin Point, the easiest way to buy Bitcoin in the UK with as little as £5. By default, you also get an online wallet to store and send Bitcoin, but you can also add an existing Bitcoin wallet as well. Register in under 3 minutes and link your bank account for an instant payment to buy Bitcoin at the cheapest rate from 0.2% only. You can also set up recurring purchases by sending weekly or monthly transfers from your UK bank account. Bitcoin Point also allows its users to send Bitcoin on the Lightning Network for faster, cheaper, and more secure transactions with my code podcast1, which you can check in the description below. You'll get £5 of free Bitcoin after your first transaction. So don't wait, check Bitcoin Point or download the Bitcoin Point app and use my code now.
Great. Well, excited to be on here. I'm Tara Annison. I'm head of technical crypto advisory for Elliptic. It's a bit of a mouthful as a title. I'm basically like our chief crypto nerd is the best way to think of that. So I do all of our internal and external education, as well as being on hand as an SME, because I've been in the space now since around about 2015 when I got involved in crypto. So been around a while in the crypto scene.
Wow. So like you mentioned, 2015 is when you first stumbled across crypto. Like, was Bitcoin the first thing that you stumbled across, or was it something else?
Yeah, so I did maths at uni, maths and philosophy, and
Nice, okay.
it was in a cryptography lecture in my third year, and the lecturer kind of was talking about different encryption methods and talking about various hashing algorithms, and kind of a little bit offhand was like, oh, there's this thing called a blockchain, and I was never the kind of person that did extra reading or went like outside of the lecture. But for some reason, I was like, I'm going to Google this. Like, what is this thing called Bitcoin? And so I got the white paper. It's only 8 pages, 9 with the reference. And like, I got the maths. Like, the maths made sense to me. It barely makes sense now because, you forget everything from your degree. But at the time, the maths made a lot of sense. And so I was like, oh, like, I'm going to Google this a little bit more. And so I kind of fell down the rabbit hole from there. And then, that was back in 2015 and deep in crypto ever since.
Nice. So like when you first stumbled across it, like, didn't you think it was like a scam or something like that? Because a lot of people, as soon as they've heard about Bitcoin, like, they thought it was a scam or it was dodgy. Like, did you have similar thoughts, or would you like, okay, this seems somewhat promising, after the 8 to 9 pages that you read, would you like, okay, I kind of understand this, I kind of believe in it, or like, was you still very skeptical?
I was like completely bought in. I love the idea.
Right, really? From the start?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So
wow.
I even called my grandparents and asked them for £10,000 because I was like, I want to buy this thing called Bitcoin, and they were like, what on earth is that? And I was like, so it's this digital form of money, financial freedom. The maths is really cool. And obviously they were like, no, you can't have this money. So I like spent the last of my student loan, which was like not much at the time, and bought Bitcoin. So had they have given me the money at the time, I'd be like a multimillionaire.
Really?
I have reminded them of this often because like that would have been such, like, Bitcoin at the time was like a couple of $100. So
true.
Would have been a great investment, but oh well, I'm not bitter about that at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, if you was to like invest that 10,000, like, how much do you reckon you would have now? A good 7 years down the line.
Yeah, I'm very much like a long-term hodler. Like, I, was the laser eyes kind of vibe. So I still think we're going to reach. This is not financial advice. I personally still think we're going to reach 100K. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah? What,
I have
really?
no doubt.
Like, when?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, when do you reckon? Obviously, you don't know, but predictions.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, every time I kind of think we're going to go back on a bull run, something seems to hit in the way. So I think we're probably in a bit of a prolonged crypto winter, which, I've survived quite a few of them now, so I don't really mind. I'm not, like, at one point I was doing a little bit of day trading, and then I was like, God, this is a lot of effort. So now I basically just the classic stack sats and maybe one day I'll sell, but I also just really like having some crypto, like owning a bit of Bitcoin feels like it means a lot to me. So yeah, people always joke like, when will you sell? I'm like, probably never.
Probably never, yeah.
Which is why I'm a really bad investor.
Right. So you're like what do you call it? You're like a hoarder of Bitcoin.
Yeah, long-term hodler, definitely.
Right. So I was gonna mention as well, so like your student loan that you put in, obviously you said it wasn't like much at the time, but like how much is that worth like now? Like that should be worth a good amount of money, right?
Yeah, it's definitely worth a lot more than when I put it in, that's for sure. So the returns are way better than I could have got. Well, leaving it in a bank, definitely, but even putting it in like stocks and shares, definitely. And I, of course, like in 2017, 2018, was like, oh, okay, like maybe these ICOs are going to do something. So, you know, a couple went okay, but most of them were awful. So I definitely threw away a bit of good money in the ICO boom and bust. But, you know, maybe one day Tron will do something and they're like 8p or the 8 cents I paid for it will not seem so bad. But yeah, definitely made some questionable ICO investments. Although like I've never been one to throw loads of money in. So it wasn't too bad loss wise.
No, that's good. So like what, do you stake as well, or like you don't really stake?
A little bit. I'm kind of, yeah, I like dabble in various bits and pieces. If I see any projects that I think are particularly interesting, I'll buy like 20 or 50 quid's worth. But I've largely stayed away from making like big investments, like putting £10,000 in a coin or something. Because I think once you've been around for a while and you've just seen how many projects have failed, just like I expect if you're like a serial entrepreneur, you just get used to the fact that startups fail, companies fail, coins collapse. So yeah, for me, even if I was like, oh my God, this project's amazing, this team is amazing, this, you know, crypto is really high risk.
Yeah, I heard, I was watching a video today and they reckon like 98% of these coins have failed. And yeah, it's literally only like a 2% success rate. So you're right. I feel like when it comes to investing, you should definitely stick to the Bitcoins, the Ethereums. What do you think about like Solana or like Cardano or XRP? Like, are you an investor in those ones? Or not so much?
It's such a good question. So Solana had like really high hopes. Like the tech was really cool. The team is really impressive. They've just had so many issues and chain stalls and service degradations already. So I hope they're going to work some magic. But I think with many of these chains, and Cardano's the same, like as much as I won't want to say they're like Ethereum killers or Ethereum competitors, realistically, they're there because Ethereum is too high fees and transaction congestion. But when we've got, you know, Vitalik's big long-term plan about being layer 2 first, then fees should go down, scalability should go up. And it's kind of like, well, what's then your USP? And I know Cardano's doing loads on scalability. They're doing human readable addresses. I think they're going to do tokens as well. Like, you know, everyone's trying to be basically everything. And I really like the simplicity of Bitcoin. It's just digital cash or digital gold, depending how you see it. Doesn't need to be any more than that. That's just all it is. And Ethereum is kind of the big chain for everything else. Whether it will stay like that, I don't know. Blockbusters was big at one point and now it's not. So
no, it's not. Yep.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, I think it's definitely like I call myself a Bitcoin maxi, and I'm doing that almost to like try and regain the term maxi from being really negative. Like I'm a Bitcoin super fan kind of vibe is maybe the better description, but I don't think it's a one horse race. So I think there will be loads of these chains that exist. Which ones? I don't know. I've like spread my bets across a bunch of different ones. I follow some chains more than others from like a technical implementation. Like I'm really, really obsessed at the moment with the Litecoin implementation from Mimblewimble and what they're doing there from a privacy perspective.
Litecoin today.
Yeah, they're doing some really cool stuff. Take a look. And then Zcash have got their new 5 upgrade, which is major. So there's a lot going on technically that I find really interesting in a lot of these protocols. But obviously there's like, well, thousands and thousands of cryptos. So it's impossible to keep up with everything. And you kind of have to like, choose where your interests lie.
I had to put down Zcash as soon as you mentioned it, because
Yeah.
Litecoin was one that I put down on the list today, along with Zcash, Zcash now. But before I put down Litecoin, Cardano, Solano, XRP, as in like new coins that I kind of wanna invest in, other than like Bitcoin or Ethereum. But as you said with Solana, like I don't know, because of what you told me now, I wasn't really too aware of that. So
Yeah, definitely looking like that. The tech is really cool. Their team is super impressive, but they're trying to reach like crazy levels of scalability, and with that
right,
always comes challenges.
yeah,
XRP, I mean, I think the SEC lawsuit has been pushed back by a year,
yeah,
so they're not happy about that. So what
yeah,
impact that's going to have on the
yep,
coin, I don't know. There was
yep,
an interesting interview with Brett Garlinghouse, one of the kind of founders behind it, and he said, which was really interesting, we're already operating as if we're a security, like no one will touch us inside
right,
the US. Like their
mm,
main markets are outside of the US, and
mm,
actually they're seeing like really quite impressive growth, which is really
mm,
interesting. So yeah, like one to take a look at, because XRP is certainly fighting the legal battle. I'm not personally too bullish on it as like
yeah,
a technology and as a
mm,
kind of crypto generally, but like fair play to them. They didn't die when the SEC tried to sue them, so that's like quite impressive.
mm. So like, what do you think about Sand? What do you think about Decentraland? What do you think about NFTs?
Yes, I'm like obsessed with the metaverse. The
All right,
metaverse is like a big area.
it's
And
super
in
cool, right?
fact, yeah, in fact, like
Especially the
spoilers,
avatars and stuff.
in a couple of weeks, hopefully a weeks, I'm going to be launching, like Elliptic are going to be publishing a report that I've written on crime in the metaverse. So
Oh,
it's
really?
a study of various criminal typologies, a load of use cases, but it's not all doom and gloom in the metaverse. Like I
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time in Decentraland, been
Right.
to virtual concerts,
Mm-hmm.
been to various tours of really cool buildings, and I'm doing a lot actually externally to Elliptic on like
Nice.
metaverse kind of training and
Mm-hmm.
estate agency 3.0 type vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think the metaverse is really cool. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a great concept, and I think it was Gartner has done a cool study which says that they expect 25% of people to spend 1 hour or more in the metaverse per day by I think it's 2030.
Oh,
So
that's decent.
just
Okay.
as the millennials of
Mm-hmm.
the world, so kind of
Mm-hmm.
me, are obsessed with social media. Me
Mm-hmm.
not that much, but like
Yeah.
as a
Others.
generation we are.
Yeah.
I really think like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the
Mm-hmm.
metaverse is their social media. Like that's what they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be obsessed with. And when we've got haptic suits, 360-degree treadmills, like the
Mm-hmm.
experience of the metaverse is going to be
Mm-hmm.
way more than what it is right now, which
Right
is
now,
like
yep.
primarily laptops and headsets, which is
Mm-hmm.
still really cool. But like
Mm-hmm.
the metaverse with those kind of devices, like, oh yeah, I'm hyped. It's going to be great.
I definitely want to buy more metaverse stock then, because after Q1 I think that they went up by like 16%, which is pretty decent. So I've already got like a pretty decent return on that. So in regards to stocks, yeah, like the metaverse is definitely one I'll be pumping more money into. And then obviously talking about the Bitcoin conference. Yeah, can you just like tell us a little bit more about how you came across that, number one? Number two, talk about the vibe, the crowd, the people that you met, etc., etc.
It was super fun. So
Mm-hmm.
I've missed going to in-person events with the pandemic. Like
So have I.
there's something that's just so exciting about a
Yeah.
load of like crypto people in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, I'm like a bit of a Bitcoin maxi. So this was, yeah, like there's a kind of homecoming for all like the Bitcoin people to get together, wear
Mm-hmm.
orange, and just like get hyped about Bitcoin.
Right.
Now, for me, I think I had a slightly different conference experience to some people who would be there, because I was really deliberately going on the tech stages. So I
Right.
was
Okay.
like literally camped out at the open source stage, which was for
Mm-hmm.
like Bitcoin core development.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I work for Elliptic, which is a crypto compliance company. We
Right.
are, trying to make the space a lot safer for people to interact. But there are some
Mm-hmm.
people who don't like what we do.
Why is
Kind
that?
of feel it. Well, they think I think it comes from a misconception that we're basically tracking all transactions, alerting on every single transaction. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, what we're doing is we're working with exchanges, merchant service payment providers,
Mm-hmm.
financial institutions to help them understand the transactions they're interested in. So we're not having this like broad kind of CIA approach to tracking absolutely everything all the time. It's specific about what our customers care about.
Right. Okay.
And also, like, we don't track individuals. Like, we don't care about you. We care about, you know, the Coinbases. We care about the OpenSeas. We care about, you know, these big institutions and the big entities. And so I think people think like, oh my God, is Elliptic like tracking every payment I make? We're not trying to follow you. We're trying to understand like the entities in the space. And, you know, really importantly, the bad actors. We're trying to track the terrorists. We're trying to track those that are using crypto to pay for child sexual abuse material. We're trying to catch the bad guys and stop them using crypto. And when you look at some of the numbers, like back in 2013, around about 35% of Bitcoin activity was linked to illicit activity. 35%. That's bad.
That's a lot. Like, that's massive.
Whereas now it's around, well, it's less than 1%.
Oh,
and
really?
That's great.
That's
we're
insane.
like weeding out the bad people, and that's because we're catching them, and that's what Elliptic is helping to do. So we are trying to do good, but some people, sadly, in the industry kind of see us as like overreaching into privacy. But it's a really delicate balance.
So like, how did they manage to get from like 35% to 1%? Because that's massive. Like, what was done?
So a big part of it is bringing in kind of good players in the space. So people that are using crypto to buy goods and services, people that are speculating and trading. So, you know, initially, and we see this with many different technologies, when there's a brand new technology, some of the earliest adopters are criminals because they're always looking for ways to get around traditional kind of money laundering or various kind of criminal blockers. So naturally, they're like a little bit more excited to try new stuff. They've got a higher risk tolerance. And so we definitely see that happening, or we saw it happening in crypto. You know, Silk Road was one of the big earliest use cases of people buying all sorts of illicit stuff. But then we kind of got people starting to say, oh, you know what, this Bitcoin thing is pretty good. I want to send some remittance to someone in Africa saying I don't want to have to pay crazy amounts of money because the banks deem it high risk. And they were like, Bitcoin, this is pretty useful. People were trying to look at, you know, how can I send money really quickly, really cheaply? How can I send money in all these different ways? And so Bitcoin was like a really good use case. And then we started to get people getting really creative, building exchanges, building all sorts of businesses around the crypto space. And so naturally that brings more good actors in to dilute the bad activity. And then when you add on a more kind of growing and professionalizing crypto compliance space, like what Elliptic kind of grew out of, we started back in 2013, then you start getting the bad actors and you start getting them caught. You start saying to law enforcement, oh, this person is a terrorist raising funds with Bitcoin. Do you want to go look at this address? Do you want to go try and subpoena Coinbase and find out who they are? Great, cool, let's stop them using Bitcoin. So by kind of sharing that information and making that information available, it means the bad actors get caught. And then they start going, you know what, I'm not using Bitcoin because every time I use Bitcoin, the police come knocking at my door and I end up in jail. So that's a really good way of stopping people getting into the space and using it for illicit purposes if they know that there's a high chance they're going to get caught.
And then, like, at the conference, who did you meet? What did you prefer? Talk about your booth as well, and when you would go back.
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely go back. It was super fun. I mean, I had a great time because, like, at the open source stage, whilst I was largely hiding who I work for, because I was like, I don't want them to hate me, the talks were amazing. And I saw loads of the Bitcoin Core developers who, to me, are like celebrities. Like, I saw Jeremy Rubin on stage, and I'm following the CTV debate on Bitcoin Core mailing list at the moment. I saw Matt Odell, who's like really big in privacy. So even people like Nifty Nye, who's a Lightning developer. So I was there like celebrity spotting, basically. Oh my God, look at these people that created this network. I then tweeted about it and some of them liked it, and I was literally like, oh my God, life made. So I spent most of my time there. I spent a good amount of my time on the mining stage as well, watching a whole bunch of talks about crypto mining with ESG. So one of the things I get really annoyed at is people saying like, oh, we need to ban proof of work, it's killing the environment. I'm like, no, let me tell you some stats. Let me re-educate you on this one. And so I was there to get more stats and be able to arm myself when that inevitably comes around. So I was very much on like the technical stages. I caught a little bit of one of the talks on the main stage. I was like there to eat a sandwich for lunch. And there was like this kind of boomer basically on the stage, and he was like,
Mm.
who here is a Bitcoin billionaire? And obviously no one put up their hand. And then he was like, who wants to be a Bitcoin billionaire? And everyone's like, yeah. And I was like, oh God, where am I? This is awful. So like the main stage was quite like a hype stage, whereas I'm
I would
really
love
interested
to
in
be
like the
there.
tech.
Like I love all that stuff. Yeah.
But there was a couple of interesting moments like in the mining stage. That was probably the more like the you know, F fiat kind of stage. Like occasionally people would mention, oh, the Bitcoin price is like $40,000, and someone would be like, you know, F fiat price references, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. And I was like, wow, strong energy in this room. So that was quite funny. So yeah, I definitely met some really cool people. There was like so many people were there that just had such a passion for crypto, and I love that because I'm like obsessed with crypto and really passionate about it. So I got to meet some great people. The events afterwards were super fun as well. Miami knows how to party, to say the least. So needed a bit of a holiday after Bitcoin Miami, that's for sure. So I wasn't actually on our stand all that much. I was mainly just going to the various talks and kind of like soaking up all the information that I could, having especially the Bitcoin core developers there to hear from directly.
And then obviously I was gonna ask, like, would you go back? But clearly you would. So
definitely.
When is the next event taking place, and like where would it be?
Oh, I don't know actually. So it'll definitely be next year sometime, because I'll call it Bitcoin 2023.
Probably gonna be even more people attending this time.
Yeah, there was a lot. It was super busy. But one thing which I was really impressed at, like the quality of the crowd was really impressive. So back in like 2019, when it was kind of more on the conference scene pre-pandemic, you go to conferences and meet a lot of people who are brand new to the space, which, you know, it's great. You want to get them like involved, but sometimes you want to chat with someone who has been in the space for a while or is building something in the space. And so I didn't really feel like the quality of people, certainly from like a sales side with businesses, but also just generally, it's a lot of new people. Whereas I felt at Bitcoin 2022 this year, I was meeting loads of people and I was like, oh, when have you been in the space since? And like, there was a lot of the 2017, 2018 crowd. I think I met one person though, who'd been in before me. And I was getting really excited about that because I'm like, oh, fantastic. I met someone who was a cryptographer out in Israel. We had the nerdiest chat possible, as you can imagine. I met someone who does documentaries, and she's doing crypto-based documentaries. So I was like, great, we have a load of crime stats if you want to chat. So I met like loads of really cool people doing really interesting stuff in the space, as well as obviously loads of engineers and kind of protocol devs, because I naturally like gravitate towards them for my nerdy chats.
Nice. And then obviously, like, you have a book. Like, could you tell us a little bit more like about what inspired you to write the book, like what the book is about? And then after you answer that question, I'll get into the next.
So the book is called the Bitcoin ABC book. So it's a book kind of targeted for kids, but I showed it to one of my friends the other day who's in the space and been in the space for a while, and even he was like reading one page and he was like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, there we go, it's a book for everyone. You don't have to be a baby. But the reason I created it was because, and I'm sure, you know, anyone listening to this already is like, wow, she like is really obsessed with crypto. And all my friends, all my family know that. And so when my cousin announced she was pregnant, naturally I was like, oh my God, I need to teach her baby all about Bitcoin. How do I make his or her first word Bitcoin? Or my like stock phrase, Craig Wright is not Satoshi Nakamoto.
Like, funny enough, I actually met Craig Wright. I have a picture of him.
Really? Oh God, no. I did meet him once and he wasn't very nice to me, but maybe that's one of the reasons I don't like him.
He gave me like a blue Bitcoin like USB thing. I've still got it. I don't know what's on it, but
oh wow, don't plug it in.
Oh, okay, probably, don't plug it in. Yeah.
No, who knows what's on it?
True.
So the book, I basically wanted to kind of educate the baby, and then when Peggy was born, like things kind of perfectly aligned with getting the book written. I got an illustrator in, published. So I think she was like a couple of weeks old, and I got to like show her book that I made her. And there's a little dedication on the inside page which basically says like, your parents are really bored about me talking about Bitcoin, so I'm excited to have a new listener. I'm hoping Peggy will grow up being a really big Bitcoin fan. But it's kind of for to be honest, anyone getting into the space. Like I went round in Bitcoin 2022, and whenever I saw a parent with his or her child, I'd go and like give them a copy of the book to like, get them on their crypto journey. So I think it's great if you're like a kid and you want to learn, but also you know, the book is literally to work through some of the key terminology in the space. So if you're new to the space at all, or even if you just want a beautifully illustrated book about crypto, then it's basically for you.
Nice. So like, do you reckon that that you would like put it into schools, or have you thought about like pushing it in schools?
That'd be the dream. I need to I mean, I have a pretty busy job and a lot of side hustles. So I've got this, I've got a crypto card game as well,
nice. Okay,
which is out being restocked. So I don't like free time at all. I've got various other kind of items that'll be coming out fairly soon. So as well as launching all this stuff, I need a marketing plan. But my background is product in the like engineering product sense. So I'm really good, I think, at launching stuff, but then at that point you pass it over to the marketing and sales team, and now I'm like, wait, I am the marketing and sales team. So I need to figure out that side of it.
Funny enough, you mentioned marketing, because like I actually have a marketing company, so
Perfect.
So like
okay,
basically like we do absolutely. So like we do like social media marketing more so on like lead generation and like just different social media campaigns, like mainly on like Facebook. So yeah, no, like 100% we'll talk. Obviously, like this conversation wasn't really supposed to be about me, but I thought I would just throw that out there, like, you know, like just so you're aware. And then also, if you could tell us, well, I was going to ask you why the book is for children, but I think it's pretty much self-explanatory because of what you said, number one, but number two, because you wanted to create a book that everybody can understand, and a book that has like bite-sized information in it, because there is some books out there that's super technical, and you know, it's not for the everyday person. So it's good that you have a book like this. I'll be very interested in getting a copy from yourself for myself.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think two guests already on the show have sent me their book. One was in I think it was, don't quote me, I think it was Salvador, like maybe, and then the other one was in America. So yeah, like it was pretty cool to have those books show up in my house. And then
nice.
If you could also tell us about the different parts of your book as well, like just to kind of like delve into like the different chapters, or you know, like just the different pieces of information that's in the book.
So the beautiful thing is it's really nicely simple. It's an ABC book. So like A is for airdrop, B is for Bitcoin, C is for cryptocurrency. And then with each page, I was really keen on, because there are actually a couple of others out in the market I discovered. But what I wanted to do is like not just the words, like I wanted to properly explain it. So within each page is like a actual description of what this thing is about, as well as these amazing illustrations. Like the illustrator I worked with was just incredible. So I would do these really awful, crappy drawings on a piece of paper. I'd hand them over to my sister, who is much more arty than me. She would turn them into something that looks like actually really good. And then from that, the illustrator would create these beautiful digital designs. So between the three of us, with me kind of giving ideas, but horrific creativity in terms of drawing them, we kind of came up with this beautiful book. And so, yeah, for me, it's all about that simplicity. It's meant to be there so that at the end of it, you're coming away with a good understanding of basically loads of the key terms in the industry. It's not there as your final education book. You read this and suddenly you're like a master of the space at all. But I'm hoping a lot of people will read it who are like brand new to the space, and it is quite an intimidating space. So I'm hoping it's like a really like kind of hand-holdy, like welcome to the industry. I know it seems scary, but we've got you. Very much the kind of good morning friends vibes is the idea of it. And like I said, whilst it is like a Bitcoin ABC book, kind of looks like it's for kids, I've shown this to so many of my friends, and they genuinely learned things from it. So I think it's adults and kids alike.
Nice. So how long did it take you to write the book, number one? How many pages is it? And then also like kind of talk about like the artwork and the inspiration behind the artwork.
So the book, I think it was pretty quick to write because the content isn't super duper long.
Right,
Choosing what was going to go in was probably hard because for like B, there's Bitcoin, but there's so many other things in as well. So trying to nail down like the one thing that was going to be B or F, etc., was probably one of the most challenging things. Writing the descriptions didn't take too long, although it was really nice because my illustrator doesn't have a crypto background at all.
Right, okay.
So every time I'd send it through, she'd be like, oh my God, this is really interesting. I'm learning all about
so like,
this.
wow, she was learning as well.
She was like a test
Wow,
case.
okay.
So if I'd write something and she was like, hang on, but what does this mean? I'd be like, cool, let's break that down more. So that was a really good way to make sure that like if you're picking up for the first time, it is accessible. It's not just like terms on terms on terms. And then you're like, I don't get this. You've explained something with more complex things. So that was I reckon a couple of like months to pull that together, or maybe a couple of weeks to pull the kind of text together, and then the illustrations took the longest, just because like they're so beautiful. Like initially I thought they were going to be a couple of drawings, but they're like these whole page illustrations. And so what started off as me just being like, okay, what comes to mind when I think of like cryptocurrency? And I think maybe it's a bit of an insight into my mind, because these are all just the first things that basically came to mind when I thought of these letters and the words that I chose for them. And then she would basically, and my sister would take this and just like run with it and make them these like amazing artworks. So I, for instance, is for ICO, an initial coin offering. And so what came to mind for me was like, oh, like a market stall that's selling cryptocurrencies. And so I do this like really crappy drawing, and it's like, yeah, like one of those kind of shops with like the wooden poles and then the bunting and whatever. And then my sister would be like, right, I think I kind of know what you're saying. And she'd turn in something really nice. And then Vicky would just work an absolute magic wand and show me this like full page visual that's just like amazing. And I'm like, that's what I had in my head, but 10 times better. And I don't know how you've managed to get there from my really rubbish pen drawing. So yeah, it was quite the process of back and forth, and making sure that like I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so there was a lot of back and forth of like, oh, could we do like a slightly like darker green here, or maybe like can this like smile be a little bit more smiley here on this like, little coin. But like what we came out with the first time I got the proof copy in the post, I was just like, oh my God, this is like, I can't believe that I've made this. It's actually really good. So it's a really nice moment, because it is like a little bit of artwork as well as educational book.
Absolutely. So I was gonna ask, obviously, you know, whether or not you would introduce the book to adults, but like it's obvious that you would, like you mentioned that you already have. So is there anything else that you'll kind of, you know, like to add about Bitcoin? Is there anything else that you'd like to add about yourself, or maybe even like some words of advice for people, you know, listening, or some gems for people listening?
So for me, the biggest thing has always, and this is why like the book completely makes sense for me, it's like it's education. So I've always been really vocal, big in the space on, like I've written on the topic for actually years now, all to educate people. So my thing has always been explaining tech for non-tech people. So I'm the kind of person that is like, okay, this thing's really interesting. I'm going to explain to you elliptic curve cryptography because it's how addresses are generated. It's really messy, but let me get a pen, let me explain it. And so I really like explaining those really technical concepts to people. And so I think for anyone coming into the space, like there are so many technical terms, like DeFi as a space, like the layers in DeFi are just astronomically complex. And I think it's really intimidating, but I would really encourage certainly anyone new to the space, like there's so many resources out there. My book is one, but there's loads of really good resources out there to kind of take you step by step on that journey of like, first of all, what is Bitcoin? Like always just start with this thing called Bitcoin, the blockchain that makes it work. Because within that, I mean, there's enough to keep you busy. But once you have that kind of fundamental understanding of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain, you can kind of build on there of, you know, once you get proof of work, moving to proof of stake is like, okay, I can like build on this. Once you get there and you start talking about Ethereum, and then you start talking about smart contracts, such a primer into DeFi. When you start talking about tokens, such a primer into NFTs and the metaverse. So I'd say like just always start with Bitcoin, and of course I'd say that I'm a Bitcoin maxi, but always start there, start building up your knowledge of it, because I think in order to be in this space, it is really important to have just even like a good level of understanding about the tech. And the tech is super exciting and really cool. So I would really encourage people to not just be put off by the complexity, by the jargon that we use in the industry. Like, take the time to get into it and educate yourself about the technology, because I think once you start understanding that, first of all, it blows your mind and you're like, whoa, we're in the coolest industry on the planet. But also it means that when things start happening, you're like, oh, this makes sense. I get why that's a big deal because of this. And so it just will help you link everything up in the space and make the most of opportunities, and in many ways as well avoid some of the risks.
Absolutely. And then obviously, I guess, like, last but not least, like, how much is your book and where can they find your book as well?
So it's $9.99 on Amazon. So you can buy it off amazon.co.uk, amazon.com. If you type in the Bitcoin ABC book, then it'll pop right up. I'm only
the link would also be in the description as well.
There
but
we
go
go.
ahead.
Oh my God, someone's a professional. Yeah, so you can buy it off any Amazon. There's, I think, Amazon in Canada, Amazon in various other Australia locations as well. It's the only place I'm selling it right now. If I get someone who knows about marketing, hint, hint, wink, wink, maybe there's other channels I need to explore. So TBC there.
Nice. Yeah, no, absolutely. We can definitely 100% talk about that. And then like, you know, where can the people find you? Because obviously people are gonna more than likely follow you on social media or reach out to you. So yeah.
So LinkedIn is my kind of primary space. You'll find me on there. Like every week on a Friday, I normally put out a little post about various happenings in the space with various links. And as I say, I'm a big writer on there of explaining tech, explaining the big concepts. I think the last piece that I put on is kind of walk through of how the wrapping process works for wrapped Bitcoin, and so how you can have assets kind of crossing the Bitcoin blockchain and the Ethereum blockchain. So if you want more content that you can possibly digest, I've got a very, very long back catalogue of content from, I think, back into 2016 potentially.
Wow.
I've been writing in the space for a while. I think my first article, I think it is explaining basically the Bitcoin blockchain from mathematical first principles. So if you want the maths, it's definitely on there. I've got little graphics that I draw in PowerPoint, so it's all. I think you'll see essentially what my sister and my illustrator had to work with when you see some of the visuals that I've created for my articles. But yeah, that's my like main space. I do have Twitter as well, but that's more like sassy kind of shower thoughts on crypto rather than anything particularly philosophical. But yeah, LinkedIn is my main space.
Nice. So yeah, guys, obviously make sure that you follow her on LinkedIn or connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her on Twitter as well. And definitely go pick that book up. You know, it's only £10, but you know, like, it's worth, you know, thousands and thousands more essentially, because if you invest the right way off of the knowledge that you kind of picked up from the book, then yeah, you know, it could be worth tens of thousands in the future, or maybe even 100,000, depending on if Bitcoin hits 100,000. But yeah, also be sure to click the link in the description or in the comment section to get £5 of free Bitcoin using code podcast1. And yeah, this is the final episode, so I appreciate everybody that's tuned in so far. I appreciate you if you stayed to the end of this video as well. And yeah, I guess you just have to stay posted to see what me and Bitcoin Point have coming next.